dreaming of owning land? Shelter Zimbabwe makes it possible. With prime residential stands in Rockview Park, Mabuku Chijanje, and Lendi Park Marondera, we've got the perfect location for you. Enjoy flexible payment terms, whether cash or as little as 20% deposit with affordable monthly installments. Prices are inclusive of VAT, giving you peace of mind as you secure your future. Don't wait. Become a proud landlord today with Shelter Zimbabwe. Gaia Ori Landlord.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here today. Looking forward to our appreciation of your experiences in pre-Zimbabwe, and also maybe sharing with us a few insights on some of the gems of wisdom that you'll indulge us with. So we'll start off, of course, appreciating Mr. Chester Mende, Managing Director here at Shelter Incorporated, and of course, John Masu, veteran journalist extraordinaire. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you very much, Farai. And thank you very much for having us. I think these two books tell the whole story, as you can see, and that one that my brother my brother is holding. This one is my memos and all things that you want to know about where I came from, where I grew up, and how I got to where I am today. You will read in this book called JM Archives Memos of a Cross-Generational Zimbabwean Broadcaster. And then for my brother Nyamwandura here, Chester Mende, Nekwatekwa Zanyamwandura, find that very interesting. From the time I saw this book, I no longer call him Chester Nyamwandura. Yeah, so we'll be telling you about how we ended up being in the township and how we grew up there. You know, we'll be looking at business, we'll be looking at sport, at entertainment, and various aspects of life that we went through in the township.
Yeah, I'm keen to hear about that. Maybe, Mr. Mende, you could also bring in the township girls there for the privilege of gender parity.
Thanks for having us, Farai, and John, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for finding the time to be here and walk us through memory lane.
Yes,
Farai, my colleagues that grew up with us in Salisbury, wrote two books. The girls wrote the first book, which is called Township Girls, and here Township Girls is compiled by Nomsa Mwamuka, Farai Mpisaunga Mpofu, and Wadzanai Garwe. Very interesting how we walked, from Salisbury to Harare. And the boys also wrote Township Boys. John Matinde, myself, we have Nigel Munyati, we have Nigel Chanakira, who wrote Township Boys. Yes. So that kind of speaks to the road from Salisbury to where we are today in Harare. Yes. And of course, Salisbury was in Rhodesia.
And what's interesting about this book, Brother Chester, is that we knew the parents of these girls very, very well. They were socialites of their time, well-known people. Now, if we go to Nomsa Mwamuka, the Mwamukas were prominent business people in Harare. Yes. We still have Mwamuka in Highfield. And most of you will remember Club Saratoga. It was owned by the Mwamukas. And the Mwamuka service station, if you remember, they used to sell very nice fish and chips just next to Machipisa Bar. And then you have, you also have Farai Mpisaunga Mpofu. The Mpisaungas, Etherton Mpisaunga was a guru in advertising. And I used to record quite a lot of commercial spots with him. And in fact, I credit him in my book here, having taught me how to deliver an advert. Wonderful. So that someone can buy from how I would have delivered, a product, in terms of people feeling the product. Yes. So we would record a 30-second commercial for almost 2 hours, to the point of almost giving up. But Etherton Mpisaunga would guide us and you come out well.
Yes.
So that's
And his wife Ruth.
Yes, Ruth was
the
a broadcaster.
pioneer insurance salesperson. If you
Well,
remember.
that was much later
Much
on.
later,
She was also in broadcasting.
Wow.
She did quite a number of programs in broadcasting.
Wow,
And
wow,
and I think she grew up in Mbare as Rosim Chawaya, I think from the old bricks. So forth, yeah. Wow. So she was one of those ladies who grew up in the capital, and their house in Highfield, Etherton's parents' house, just next to Cyril Jennings Hall.
Yes.
And I see nowadays it's even a modern house. They've the grandchildren have modernized.
Was that his parents' house?
Yes. That's where they lived in.
Right.
Yeah, I used to attend school next to it at Mofu. Mofu was part of Highfield Secondary School. Yeah, and around that area, by the way, you had the Cyril Jennings Hall.
Yes.
It has its own stories.
Right.
Just overlooking.
Up the road was Mbizi, the school.
Mbizi is the other side.
Right.
But we're still around there at that
Around
roundabout.
CJ, right.
Yes, you have CJ there.
Right.
You have the Mpisaunga house there.
Right.
You have the Savanus there.
Yes.
And you have Takawira.
Wow.
Leopold Takawira there.
Wow.
And down the road, as you turn at those flats where teachers used to reside,
Yes.
you have Robert Mugabe there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then you have Innocent Kala, where ZANU was formed.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And as you went down, you have that house, I hope you still remember, which was bombed in the 1960s. Something went wrong.
Right.
I think freedom fighters were now beginning to come in, and someone was setting up a bomb. And it blew.
Exploded.
Yeah, it exploded. And we were in class, I remember I was at Mija, and those from Mija, from Rusingo, from Kudzanai, remember Rusingo used to be called John Leng number 2,
Right,
Kudzanai, John Leng number 1, and we were at number 5, which is Mija, and all over, we all flocked to that place, and we found the house being
the ground.
ground. So that road, it's a very, very...
And up the road was kuma 12 pounds kwa igara nankomo anditi.
No, 12 pounds would be the other side near the police camp.
Yes, but all facing CJ. CJ would be like central, wouldn't it?
No, CJ was a bit far away. Kuma 12 pounds would be near the stones. The Mike Mnyati you're talking about.
Mike
the Mike
and Nigel, yeah.
The Mike, they were in the 6 pounds. And the 6 pounds were facing the 12 pounds. And then you had the camp there. Then you've got Chipembere there. Yes.
But you're losing me somewhere because kuma 12 pounds ndikoka uko kwakanga that same street yakanga ina mdara chingoka kai. You remember?
No, kuma stand. That's not kuma 12 pounds. Now kuma 12 pounds is where you had the gentleman who was abducted in the 1970s. Edson Stole. Where you had where Zaza.
Okay.
Zaza's house, Zandile Ndlovu.
Where Mucheche was.
Mucheche used to be with us in engineering. Is where he takes his. You remember?
Before he came Kunenge.
Yes, but you had the Ernest Bullets there.
Right.
Yeah, you had the Sheka Kumalos there.
Wow.
You had the Chavundukas
there
along Mangwende Drive.
Wow.
Yeah. So you have the 12 pounds.
The Bofanas were
in Jabavu Drive.
Right.
Those were in Jabavu Drive. And at one time I was their neighbor.
And the soccer boys, the 3 brothers, remind me their name.
The soccer boys, the one I remember from our neighborhood was Shepherd Mrape.
Yes, the whole family was Pakwana Papape.
Okay, I'll remember who those are you are talking about.
I know Anna Shepherd Mrape.
Yes.
And one of their brothers, Dio Guzeta, the Kochwe National team, and it?
Shepherd.
No, but there was the other one, not Shepherd. There was one of the brothers, the name escapes me.
Yeah, okay.
But all 3 of them resided up. You remember the young brother, the tall one, Shepherd's brother, the tall one.
The tall one, yeah?
He was also Ningirgine Dynamo's Ningirgine player.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, around our area, with Shepherd there, the Mrapes, and we had other Mrapes in engineering,
right.
And that's where Selma's mother came from. Selma, what's her name? Melody.
Right. Selma Mtukudzi.
Yeah, the mom.
The Melody.
Yeah, the mom came from there.
Yeah.
You had the Maponderas.
Yes.
There.
And if you went on down the road, Mashikapama shops, you had Mdara Ningigeni Besta Kanyama studio there, next to the police station.
Yes, Besta was there, and his house was overlooking Chengu.
Right.
You remember Nyarutseto Art Center?
Yes,
so it overlooked
Nyarutseto. Behind Jabavu.
Yes, behind Jabavu.
Yes,
Actually, behind where I resided when I left my family home in engineering. Yeah. So along that road, you had the Mofanas there. In fact, you had the Mawemas right at the corner.
Right.
Then you had the Mofanas, Philip Mofana himself.
Right.
resided there. Then you had Mashet, who was a very good, the Ndlovus. Then you had the Ndoros. Sadly, Gogondoro passed away recently. And then you had the Nyamambis, where I resided after my colleague Amon Nyamambi moved to Bulawayo.
So how did you end up in Harare? Because you have Bulawayo roots, am I correct?
Yes. What happened was in 1939, when the Second World War started, my father, who was from Escotini, which used to be called Essex Valley,
yes.
And we came from an area called Malungwane, and we called it Entunteni because one of the regiments of the Ndebele army, resided there. Right. So my father, when he grew up and went to work at West Nicholson, where there was a thriving beef factory. I'm sure you remember the Libix
beef factory. The corned beef people.
Yes, exactly.
Yes,
so he worked there during just before the Second World War erupted. Wow. And then there was an announcement attracting young, Rhodesians then to join the British Army, in the Second World War.
Yes.
So that's how he came to Salisbury. So he boarded a train in Gwanda, and there he was. He found himself in Salisbury training as a soldier under the British Army. And at the end of the war, when he was demobilized in 1945, he decided to stay here. Only went back to Matabele and to marry my mother, Umakumalu.
Talk of Gwanda, it reminds me, ambitious, we had been hearing of people going to fight the liberation war, Vachienda Kuchikoro and so on. So I had this friend of mine, Aisenza Kubata, the delivery van that used to go Chitengesa Ngirikenim Butsu kuma rural stores.
Yes.
So my friend was Charles Chirivengwa. He was a top salesman where Bata Shoe Company, he's late, may his soul rest in peace. So I was told kutiko ndikasvika kuBotswana ndinogona kuprocessa mapepa ekuti ndiende kuchikoro kuFiji. So I went.
Fiji?
Yes.
Yes.
Fiji,
okay.
And I didn't know where that was.
Yes, I remember those scholarships which were being offered at that time.
When I left, I thought Fiji was in West Africa, somewhere around Nigeria.
It sounded West Africa. Yeah.
So, I boarded the train from Harare, got to Bulawayo. My friend was in Bulawayo, spent a couple of hours with him, because the train arrived in the morning at 6, and then my train to Botswana was leaving at 1 o'clock. Left and went to Botswana. So left some things with him because I now had too much that I couldn't quite carry and wasn't sure whether I was allowed to cross the border with some of the items. So I went into Botswana. I was in Botswana for a couple of months. And while I was there, I just couldn't deal with this stuff. We went into refugee camps. We had to be cleared in a refugee camp just outside Gaborone. I couldn't deal with this stuff. And suddenly my papers were not enough to get me to where I needed to get to. So I said, look, I'll go home. It was not the cleverest of things to do. So I came home and I crossed, by some miracle, I crossed the border without being detected. And I don't know what the policemen were doing because they were supposed to be searching all the trains coming in. Got off the train in Bulawayo, jumped on a bus, went to Gwanda to Charles. So Charles anditambira pa bus stop. Ndobva atiko ngati mboenda emuningirikini mbawa tinonwadoro. So him and some of his colleagues were drinking. I've never been able to drink. So I was just sitting there with them. And two men and a woman. I could see them walking up, towards us. And you know how your body tells you that these people are looking for me. Yeah. And, the woman pointed at me. And I was picked up and it was CID. Shush, did I get into trouble. I was taken by CID. I was grilled. I was tortured. Oh, you know what saved me? My white employers in Salisbury, who were contacted by the police when the police were now checking who I was. Yes. Because as far as they were concerned, anything foreign was a terrorist. So this is what they identified me with. My employers were my savior. So for me, my memories of Gwanda is that experience.
Yeah.
So the other day I was driving to South Africa, and obviously when I got into Gwanda, I was looking for this place where I was detained.
You couldn't.
And the building is still there. Can
It's
you
still
believe
there, okay.
The building is still there on the main street.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, well, that's interesting.
So that's how your dad came
So my
into
dad
Salisbury.
lives by train, he comes to Salisbury, and he spent most of the time at the drill where there's the passport office.
Right.
Yeah, that's where
The passport office today.
Today,
Right.
yeah. But you remember the passport office in the past used to be at that
At
corner.
Market Square?
No. At Mutapa, just at that corner, overlooking which buildings that it has a lot of electro sales adverts. What? I'm just. But right at the corner of Mutapa, there was a big. When I took my passport, my first passport in 1973, it was written passport office there. And you can even tell now that there used to be a signpost there, but it was removed and so forth. Yeah. So my father came and he joined the army, like I said, during the Second World War. And upon demobilization, he decided to live here. He stayed in Mbare and also worked around Belvedere, Avondale. And he tells me during that time, some of the places were actually villages. You know, when I used to drive him around Belvedere, Avondale, you'd say there was a village there. There was a village there.
Well, do you remember where the National Sports Stadium is today?
Yeah.
Painge paine Mombekadze Murunguyu, if you remember.
Yes.
Between Belvedere today and Hirozeka.
Yes.
That was a farm. Painge paine Mombekadze Murunguyu, roads
well, the one I remember is over in Highfield, Glenora, Baxter, Kwa Bacaster.
Yeah.
If you remember Kwa
Yeah,
Bacaster,
and
when
that-
Glenora,
yes.
Glenview were not there,
Right.
we used to go there to look for my shanje and other things, Kwa Bacaster.
Right.
And also enjoyed going to the farm to see how they would milk the cows and
Yes,
so forth.
yes.
Where there's St. Peter's, Kubatana.
That farm here in the Park Ridge, Kwakuzonzana, Warren Park, going to Kwazana.
We've only begun the journey through tales from the old days. Stay with us. Episode 2, More Memories and the Legacy That Lives On. Welcome to Etosha Gardens, a serene and dignified resting place located just 27 kilometers from Harare. To reach us, take the Mutare Road towards Rua. Once you pass the Rua Golf Club, take the next right turn, continue for 1 kilometer, you will find our peaceful sanctuary. Etosha Gardens offers beautifully landscaped grounds, secure burial spaces, and compassionate services for your loved ones. Our team is here to assist with memorial planning, grave maintenance, and any inquiries you may have. Book a burial with us today at www.etoshagms.co.zw. Etosha Gardens, your cemetery of choice.